So this is a video that I'm really excited to make today because I finally beat Goldeneye for the Nintendo 64 for the very first time about a week or so ago. So I wanted to talk about my thoughts on the game and share what it's like to play this in 2025, how well it holds up. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit ashamed that I hadn't played this game up until this point because I'm a pretty big James Bond fan. So I'm really glad that I finally did, though. I just wish I had played it sooner. So let's get started. So Goldeneye for the Nintendo 64 is, of course, based off of the movie of the same name, and it does follow that same storyline in general. It takes a few creative liberties here and there and changes a couple minor details, but overall, same story, just told through game form this time. It also has its own unique soundtrack. It does have some similarities to the movie soundtrack. By the way, definitely recommend watching the movie. Goldeneye is an excellent James Bond film. But the soundtrack, yeah, it does have some similarities. Like, it includes that industrial pipe echo sound. If you hear the soundtrack, you'll definitely understand what I'm talking about. It's a very iconic part of GoldenEye, not only for the game, but for the movie as well. So, yeah, in that way, soundtrack is similar, but other than that, it really has its own distinct soundtrack, and each level, each mission has its own background song to kind of accompany the atmosphere that you're in, and each one is definitely very fitting for that specific level. So yeah, some tracks are more action based and other ones are kind of just background music, kind of ambient to add to the atmosphere of the mission, which is really cool. So one of the most memorable aspects of GoldenEye to a lot of people seems to be the multiplayer. A lot of people seem to have some great memories playing this with friends as a kid and family. So it is up to 4-player split screen, and you do have the option to swap levels. You can adjust whether the game ends on a timer or once a player reaches a certain high score. You can change a couple other things as well as what types of weapons will spawn on the map. So yeah, a couple different customization options there for you to decide how you want to play the multiplayer. It isn't something that I was able to experience up until more recently, but the multiplayer, from what I have played, has been a lot of fun, and I have played it quite a bit more recently. I've played it on original hardware as well as the Xbox Series X release of the game, which is available through Game Pass. Talking about the gameplay a little bit, this is one aspect of the game that might keep people from playing it, and it has aged. It's nothing like a modern first-person shooter, unless you're playing on the Xbox Series X version of the game, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. And yeah, so if you're playing on original hardware with a classic Nintendo 64 controller, it does give you a few different control schemes, so you can kind of mess around with those. But if you're using the standard one that you start off the game with, you use the thumbstick to move forward and backward, and you can also use the thumbstick to look left and right. And the C buttons, for the C buttons, of course, up and down lets you look up and down, and you can strafe with the left and right C buttons. And if you want to aim more precisely, you can hold down the right bumper, and that allows you to move the cursor on the screen to try and line up those shots that you're trying to hit, typically with like the sniper rifle. And other than that, you do have an auto target in the game, so it's more about getting into position rather than aiming for this game, which might be a little bit weird to get used to at first, but trust me, if you put the time into it, you can really get used to these controls. One thing I do recommend, though, is for some reason the look is inverted, so when you're holding that right bumper and trying to aim, you might notice that when you move it up, you'll look down. So yeah, that is one thing you can change, and I definitely recommend doing that if you're going to be, especially if you're going to be on the standard control scheme on original hardware. Overall, yeah, it has aged for sure in gameplay. It's nothing like a modern first-person shooter, but like me, if you put the time into getting used to the controls, there's really no other way that I want to experience this game now other than original hardware. Now, talking about the Xbox Game Pass release of the game, it does have modern controls. So if you don't want to play with a Nintendo 64 controller, if you don't have the original hardware, and you do have Xbox Game Pass, then yeah, this game is available on there, and it'll have a more modern control scheme. On the Nintendo 64 controller, the B button is for using buttons or switches in the game, as well as reloading your weapon, and the A button is how you swap weapons. So yeah, definitely kind of weird to get used to, but trust me, I don't want to play this game any other way now. Now, going over the levels a little bit, these are really cool because at the beginning of each level, you are given a mission briefing, pretty much. It'll give you an overview of what to expect from the level, and will give you your objectives, and Q will talk about gadgets and whatnot. So this is a really cool aspect of the game. It does, you're gonna have to read, I guess. So this is one thing that that people might skip through, but don't. It's really handy to know kind of what to expect in the level. And another thing is, definitely pay attention if you're swapping difficulties on this, because you'll have different objectives depending on what difficulty you have, which is pretty cool because the level in and of itself is exactly the same, and the other objectives are optional if you're on a lower difficulty. But yeah, if you're on a higher difficulty, chances are you'll be getting more objectives. When you're actually playing the levels, there's no objective marker, so you kind of just have to be on the lookout for something that would seem to kind of fit the description of your objective. So yeah, there is some trial and error on these levels, especially the first time you're playing through the game. But you can, of course, look up a guide if you want to do that. But yeah, this might be another part of the game that you might not enjoy. So just keep that in mind. You are going to have to probably do some trial and error, and you have to look out for what you're trying to do. But all in all, is this game still worth playing so many years later? For me, absolutely. If you want to play an excellent, legendary Nintendo 64 game, this is one for sure. Definitely worth checking out. And yeah, you know what? A lot of people say this game has aged and it might not be worth playing anymore. But for me personally, after enjoying it, yeah, although I'm a Jamesbond fan, so I might be a bit biased, this game has been a blast. It was super fun trying to learn, how each level worked, and trying to figure out how to do each objective. And then after doing some of them, I thought, that's pretty dang cool. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And now when I go back and play the game after beating it, it's still a blast. It's fun to continue trying to master the controls, and I'm by no means an expert at the game, but it's been just a lot of fun going back and playing even now after beating the game. Of course, you do have some other options if you don't have an original Nintendo 64. You can play it on Xbox if you have Game Pass, and the same thing goes for the Nintendo Switch version of the game. If you have the Switch Online expansion and the Nintendo 64 app installed, you can, of course, play this game on there. Overall, does the game hold up well in 2025? In a lot of ways, no, but I still think it's worth playing. Yeah, Goldeneye, for me, has been an absolute blast. So just kind of, if you want to try it out, go for it. It's a great game, in my opinion. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video.